I'm so excited today. I'm here with Cherilynn Castleman. Cherilyn is managing partner of CGI Executive Coaching, and I want to welcome you to the show, Cherilyn. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lori. I am thrilled to finally be here. I know you and I have gone back and forth a little bit for several months, and I'm absolutely delighted to finally connect with you.
We have, and I love that we're both wearing red today. So it's this we're meeting of the minds for sure.
I think we have so much in common, and such our backgrounds are so aligned.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
it's
is
almost like
really.
talking to myself sometimes.
Yeah, it's really great. I love it so much. Let's talk about how did you end up in sales and what did you think when you were younger, like what you wanted to do when you grew up? Because I know we talked a little bit ahead of time, but so I'm privy to it, but I think it'd be interesting to hear you share it.
So I think that you and I both started selling Girl Scout cookies, didn't we?
I did.
Yeah, I did, and I have to say I was really young. I was, like, in the 1st grade, and they needed a troop leader, and my mom was like, "If you let my daughter be in the troop, I'll be the troop leader." So I went in really young, and back then, even the young girls, I would sell Girl Scout cookies, and I thought it was the coolest thing. We filled up my wagon, and my brother walked with me. He was a couple years older. He hated it, and I would just knock on the doors, and I would say, "Buy Girl Scout cookies," and then I would upsell and say, "Oh, they freeze well," or "Get them for your friends. They make great Christmas gifts." And I was the top salesperson, and I was like, "This was so much fun, and this is cool." And so I did that. I was a Girl Scout for 30 years. And so I either was selling or helping my troops sell or organizing the sales. But also, my dad was an entrepreneur. And I learned from my dad the importance of relationships, the importance of helping your customers have a vision. And so between the two, that's all I've ever known is sales and helping people solve problems. And it was just really a natural fit. I came out of college and went into social work, and social work was one of the toughest jobs in sales. Selling my clients on legal behaviors. I went out and did fundraising and secured United Way funding for our program. That was a huge sales job, trying to convince United Way to fund us. And I discovered that somebody told me, if you're going to sell something, why don't you sell big ticket items, Cherilyn? And so that's what I started doing. And so I started selling in the insurance industry on a debit. And I
And
don't know if you know what a debit is, right?
a debit card, you mean?
No, a debit in the insurance industry
No.
is they give you a book and you go and this is about the only place that somebody would hire a woman of color, is you go around to low income houses and there's a little envelope on the door. And when they get paid, they put a dollar or 50 cents, whatever in the envelope, and you knock on the door and you say, "Insurance man," is what you used to say. Is I would say, "Insurance man." And I'd go in and take the dollar out, mark it off, and every week you walk by and you pick up their insurance premiums. And they were just very small burial policies. That was my first true sales job. But it's
Wow. I
yeah,
haven't heard of that before. That's so interesting.
yeah. But it's usually inner city or rural, but it was lower income.
Yeah.
And that's how I started selling. And I very quickly rose to the top of the leaderboard. I loved it. I was really good at it. And then I went on to get my Series 7 and my Series 6 and 22, and eventually ended up with American Express in Europe as a financial planner, selling full financial services. And then again, I was an AGA, top of the leaderboard, top salesperson. And from there, I just kept progressing till I ended up in SaaS sales.
Oh, that's great. I love the leaderboard. It's funny because I never aspired to be number 1 because I was a single mom and but I always want to be in the top 10. It's so funny because I wanted to show that I was up there and I didn't care to be number 1 necessarily, but I think it's awesome that you were. That's very cool.
I didn't strive for it, but because for me, and even today, sales was all about relationships and solving
Yeah.
problems. So I used to do workshops for women and underrepresented minorities. I did workshops for officers, and I would teach people about financial services. And then when I finished, I was like, and if you want to talk to me, here's my phone number, or here's how and people would just line up. And I remember the first time I did one, and I had a stack of applications, insurance, mutual funds, everything I was selling, retirement plans. And my manager was like, "What did you do? That's unheard of." And I was like, "I did a workshop." And people were like, "Yes."
You're
And so
helping because sales
yeah,
is helping.
and that's all I did. I was helping people. I was solving problems. And so I never had a goal of I wanted to be top of the leaderboard. It just happened because I did it through solving problems.
It's so
And that
awesome. It reminds me of talking with Jill Conrath, who isn't as prominent as she was before, like on LinkedIn, but she's working on another thing now. But she had 4 sales books, and she was the top woman speaker on sales for a number of years. And she got hired back in, I think it was the 80s, because it was a legal requirement. It was when women and minorities had to be hired at big
yeah,
company enterprise size companies because of government contracts. And
right.
so she was like the token woman that was hired, and at Xerox, she was one of them. And Xerox, I think they continue to do a good job of hiring more inclusively. I don't know about today, but they did for a long time. But she was doing so well, and all the men were asking her, "What are you doing? What's your sales strategy?" And she goes, I don't know. I'm just having conversations with people and just learning about them and helping them." So there you go. So for the women listening who think sales still has some kind of a bad name to it, it doesn't have to be.
And more than that, what I tell women is every one of us is in sales. If you have children and you get them up in the morning, you are selling them on going to school every day. If you have a spouse, you are selling them on picking up their laundry or helping around the house or unloading the dishwasher. If you are a nurse, you are selling your patients on making healthier choices. If you're a teacher, you're selling people on doing their homework. If you're a waitress, you're selling people on dessert. Everybody's in sales. So my challenge is that if sales is a gateway skill and everybody needs it, why not master it and then build generational wealth being in sales? Why not sell a big ticket item and get paid for it? And that's what I coach and tell women every day is you by mastering sales can become too good to be ignored to do any job or sell anything that you want to sell. And
Become too
women,
good to be ignored.
and that's it. That's what I do. I coach and train women to be too good to be ignored.
So what's the 1 million women by 2030?
So I'm going to start by asking you a question, and then I'll tell
Okay.
you. Okay, we have had and we've been measuring CEOs of Fortune 500 companies for 65 years. We've had 1,800 CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. Before 2021, how many of them were Black women out of those 1,800?
I'm going to say 0,
One.
1.
Ursula Burns was the CEO of Xerox from
All right.
2000 for about 8 years, around 2017. When she
Right.
stepped down, Fortune magazine interviewed her and said, "Why aren't there more women in the C-suite?" And she said, "Because women tend to go into marketing, communication, the arts, law, or medicine." And she said, "Women have to learn to get close to the juice." And she went on to explain that the juice was product and money. And I was like, that's nothing but sales. And I said, so if I teach women about financial fluency, product, executive presence, can I help raise women and get more women into the C suite or sitting at the table of their dreams or having a voice? And that's when I started my coaching practice. And so that's when I started coaching and training. And I was on a podcast and somebody asked me, "So, what is your goal?" And they said, "I challenge you to try to empower 1 million women by 2030." And so I accepted that. And so that was a little over a year ago now. And so I'm on this mission. And as I mentioned to you, I've been in sales since before Girl Scout cookies were 50 cents a box.
Yeah.
Long time.
I remember
I've
that.
Yes, I've also been a Fortune 500 global sales executive for over 30 years. And now I'm on a mission to empower 1 million women to sit at the table of their dreams by 2030. And by the table of their dreams, top of the leaderboard, sales leadership, management, or their own entrepreneurial table. If they can master sales, they can do that because so many women like me early in my career, they may lack financial fluency, access, or the executive presence to get there. And
Yeah.
so that's what I do.
That's fantastic. I love that so much. I am with you, and anything we can do to help support here at Women Sales Pros, let me know. I'm just thinking of all there must be a number of things that we can dream up together to help support that effort. So count on Women Sales Pros to support you on that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Anything I can do to help amplify your voice, I'm down for because I think our missions are aligned. And I'm always sending women to your networking organization as a resource. And so, absolutely. So, we'll have to put our heads together and come up with some strategies.
Yeah, that sounds great. And actually, we've shifted a little bit so that we really want to support every group that's out there and every organization that is supporting building inclusive sales teams. So let's talk a little bit about that. Women of color, people of color in general, are vastly underrepresented in sales. What can we do? How can we talk to leaders about this? What do the leaders need to know?
I would say three things. First of all, I worked on a report with LinkedIn. They, in 2022, commissioned Forrester, and they came up with a report. If you just Google LinkedIn and diversity drives sales, and the data proves that not only is diversity good for business, it is good for the bottom line. So and so they showed that it's about a 12% increase in revenue from teams that are more diverse versus homogeneous, much higher CSAT scores, as well as higher conversion. And so if you look at all the data says that teams that are more diverse, that have women and underrepresented minorities, outsell homogeneous. So first of all, I would challenge anybody listening to this is get this report. Look at the data. The numbers don't lie. You can also find it if you Google Cherilynn Castleman and Diversity Drive Sales. You'll see it there, but just LinkedIn or Diversity Drive Sales Lawyer. I can also send a link to you if you want to include it.
Sure.
So first of all, I would encourage people to download this and get that data. Number two, I would say look at the table and at the people at your table, around your sales table. If you don't have the diverse table, then you have to make that commitment. And the first place that I think you have to make that commitment is you have to look at your network. You have to look at the people on LinkedIn. You have to look at the organizations you belong to. Are you an ally? Are you connecting with people on social media who don't look like you? And
Yeah.
so many of them, and I tell people this all the time, we all grew up sitting around the table and we all have unconscious bias.
Yeah.
I've not met a single person that if you really think about those conversations you had as a child, we all have some type of bias that we grew up with. So my first challenge is just own that and
Yeah.
step outside your comfort zone and connect with somebody that you wouldn't normally connect with.
Yeah.
Whether it's an underrepresented minority, somebody that's younger than you, somebody that's older than you, somebody that's a different gender, build your network. And when I say connect with them, more than just send them a LinkedIn invite, engage them, do a coffee date, engage their content, share their content, read their content. There's so many groups on LinkedIn. Join groups and become an ally. Be an ally for women in sales. Be an ally for African Americans in sales or for Blacks in sales. And so that's number two. Build your network, expand your network so that when you are hiring, you have resources to hire from.
Yeah.
And number three, see people. The biggest thing that my clients say to me is, Cherilynn, my manager doesn't see me. My team members don't see me. And when I say see people, see them three ways. First of all, see them as a person. Say their name correctly. Do you know how many women in sales do you know who went by their initials? For years, I was CC because my manager couldn't figure out how to say Cherilynn Castleman.
Wow.
Okay. There's a CEO for a major telecom today that is still known by her initials because when she was young in her career, her manager
Oh,
wouldn't pronounce her name.
wouldn't.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so first pronounce her names and pronounce it correctly and spell it correctly. That's number one. Number two, see them for the value they create. One of the three reasons that women leave company is because somebody else steals their ideas. Number two is microaggressions, and number three is not being seen. But it's microaggressions and somebody stealing their ideas. Give them credit for their ideas. If they're selling, don't create a culture where you recognize and value them. And number three, see them in your future. I remember I worked once as head of customer service, and the COO told me, Cherilynn, I see you in my job one day because I'm going to be CEO. See them in your future. So when you talk about this is the role I want to be, If you have a great SDR, tell them, I see you leading an SDR team one day. If
Yeah.
they're a great manager, tell them you see them as a director one day. You see them as a VP. You see them in the C suite. See them in the future. So see them, pronounce their name correctly, see them for their value, and then see them in your future.
Yeah, and what's important about that is that this isn't about women changing, because a lot of advice is women need to be more women need to apply to get into if we want more women in sales. I think we need to make a more inviting culture so that women will say, "Oh, this will be great. Sales is helping. I want to do that." We don't hear the message that you and I are talking about today universally, unfortunately, and the skills that we can bring to our roles. So, it's not all about it's not all on women to in fact, we need the environment and the system to support us. Otherwise, we aren't gonna have more women in sales. We're not gonna have inclusive sales teams.
Yeah, I think if you talk to recruiters, they would tell you there are tons of women out there trying to get into SDR and BDR roles.
Yeah,
And there are lots and lots. I talk to women every day who have been out there, excuse me, for months trying to get hired. And
correct.
so I would say if you are a woman and you know how to listen, you like to solve problems, and you like people, you can excel in sales.
Yeah, and there are some senior women sales leaders who are looking for, their next role right now, and many of them are considering working for themselves because they're not finding the opportunities and they're not, moving forward in interviews. If companies this is a great pool of people and we need to find ways to get the connect the women to the opportunities, I think. So, if anyone's looking to hire and they're having trouble finding more diverse candidates, please reach out to either of us because I know we can offer some ideas.
And also, I'm going to challenge. So, just like I'm challenging the hiring managers, I'm challenging sales leaders. I do want to challenge the women. And so, first of all, if you're wondering if you have what it takes to go into sales, you absolutely do. So please do. I do LinkedIn lives almost every week. I'm always doing just intros into how to get into sales. What are basic sales skills? There's tons and tons of information out there. Also, if you are bumping up against that ceiling and you're not getting hired in the sales roles, I challenge you to consider getting a coach. And the reason why is success leaves clues. And there's been so much research that women, we tend to put our head down and work and work. We don't tend to build networks and we don't tend to focus on our executive presence.
Right.
And our exposure and our executive presence, which is touch and tone and character and class, are so critical. And I don't know if you've seen, I forgot whose study it is, but he said that high performance is only 10% of what it takes to get promoted.
Wow.
Because in sales, only high performers raise their hands to be promoted. So it's table stakes.
Yeah, you
So
gotta
you
do
can so if you show up and all you've got is high performance or you've exceeded your quota, you're only showing up with 10%. 90% is 30% is executive presence and 60% is exposure. And that's something that a coach can help you with.
Yeah, that's really good advice, and I totally echo that. My friend Hang Black posted about our friend mutual friend John Barrows, who's in
Uh-huh.
our Salesforce group. I don't know if you saw it yet, but it
Yeah.
reminded me I forgot about this, but when John Barrows' father passed away, John was cleaning up his dad's desk and he found a handwritten note, and it says, "When you are accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression." And he had that tattooed on his arm, and
Oh
it's
my
that's
goodness.
I
Oh,
don't know, isn't that
so
something?
powerful. That is, I've not seen that. I will have to go look at that. I
Yeah,
adore Jim. He is so transparent and he is
he's an
just
ally.
so he is such a yeah. And that's the thing is that we need allies, but we also have to own our own responsibility. And I always challenge people and I say, you get to choose. You can either go to work for a company where you may be the only and you're going to skin your knees and elbows, but know that and be the trailblazer. I said, or go out and work for companies that hire diverse candidates and are known as great places to work for diverse people and go and shine. But you don't get to go and work for a company where everybody and nobody in the company looks like you and then complain because you had to skin your elbows and knees. It's fine. But if you're going to be a trailblazer, if you
Yes.
don't want to be a trailblazer, don't go work for those companies. Go
Right.
work for companies that are known as great places to work. But either way, there are some secrets, and that's what I spend my time doing is helping you be too good to be ignored to be promoted.
Oh,
And
that's wonderful. Do you have a book or podcast to recommend?
that's a good question. So if you're new to sales and you haven't sold or you're just being, I love Donald Kelly's new book, Sell It Like a Mango.
And I
Is
like
that
a
it?
mango. I always think of it like a
Yeah.
song.
Yeah.
Like a
So
mango. Yeah.
it is it's a great story. It talks about him growing up and selling mangoes, and somebody's selling mangoes on every corner, and how do you differentiate yourself? And so if you just want a really basic book entry, I love Donald's book, Sell It Like a Mango. If
Yeah.
you've been in sales for a while, I have a book, Post-Pandemic Selling, that talks about strategies of selling against the pandemic tailwind. There are a lot of things that changed coming out of the pandemic, and it is just a great, very positive, very just tip after tip. And I'm all about actionable insights.
Oh,
So
I
it
didn't
has
know
lots
you had that. I need to put that
yeah,
on my list. Okay.
yeah. And so it's post-pandemic selling. It was also in Salesforce's list, that top 6 books
Oh,
that they listed. Books that I have always enjoyed, of course, is a Challenger Sale. It is a good foundation about just understanding your customers. And one that I've always recommended to people is You Can't Win a Fight with Your Client. It's 50
right.
tips on just why client, what does LinkedIn say? Customer first.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the basics of customer first. And I think that a lot of women probably don't need to read that book, but if you just want to know how, just some real basic how to make your customers first, I love
Yeah.
that one. You can't.
And that ties in with Cheryl Mahoney's book called Buyer First. It's
Yes.
really good also as well. I'd recommend that as well.
And then there's another one, Something in Heels. What's
He'll
the book that
Yes to
deals?
deals. Yes.
I love that book because it's insights from so many different professional saleswomen that no matter who you are or what you want to do, somebody has a story. And
Yes.
it's a great collection of great books by women who are in the sales profession. So if
Really
you want
is.
to, I
Yeah.
love it. It's Heels to Deals.
Yeah. Heels
That,
to deals. Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. Heidi Solomon Orlick is pulled that all together with
Right.
Girls Who Sell. Yeah, that's fantastic. I'll put links to all of those. Those are good recommendations. I just want to thank you so much, Cherilyn. It's been a pleasure to have you on our podcast and continued success. And let's get all these women to get into sales and understand that this is what we do every day. We're all selling. Sales is an admirable profession and it's a valuable profession, not just for the companies that hire us, but for women who get into sales and are able to make a great living and help support. We know that when you empower women or when women feel empowered, they can support the whole community. That's what we do, right?
That's right. They talk about a high tide raises all boats. You
Yeah.
put a woman in sales and the entire community raises.
Yes.
It's just changes everything. And one of my mentors said to me, if you criticize people, you raise their defensiveness. If you challenge people, you raise their game. So I'm going to leave your listeners with one challenge, Lori. Do one thing, just one thing that you learned from our conversation today differently starting tomorrow. I don't care if you pick up a book, listen to a podcast, go out and learn about executive presence, but do one thing differently from when you listen today. That's my challenge.
Yeah. I love that so much. Thank you so much, Sherilyn. We'll keep following you and everyone else follow Cherilyn on LinkedIn, Cherilynn Castleman, and we'll have her link in the notes as well. Thank you so much.